Hello, I recently read two mathy type books and I thought I'd just make a quick video about them. The first is Humble Pie, a comedy of math errors by Matt Parker. I knew Matt Parker from his work on YouTube, both his own channel and Numberphile, and I've been meaning to read this book for so long. I finally got around to it. And this is quite fun, it's quite light, it is a look at mistakes around maths, what causes those mistakes, and then also what those mistakes cause. I found this really well structured. Each chapter is around a certain kind of mistake, but the mistakes build on info in previous chapters. Your understanding of the maths sort of grows throughout the book, and because of that I never felt lost. He did a really good job of explaining this stuff to a layperson. He also did a great job of not making this too dry. I can see some people maybe getting annoyed at his little quips, but in my opinion he didn't do too much of them. They're just sprinkled in here and there, enough to keep the book having a sort of levity. However, he also did a great job of not trivializing some of the more serious disasters that he discusses. He's just really good at setting a conversational tone without lacking in the detail, and I think he's cultivated that through years of public speaking and YouTube work and things like that. I was impressed with his ability to then translate that skill into the written word. The most interesting sections for me were definitely the engineering mistakes, especially in regards to bridges. I just found them really fascinating, and also the folly of data averages, and also that Excel isn't really a database, that there's a difference between a spreadsheet and a database, and that using Excel when you should really be using a database can lead to all sorts of issues. I never knew that, and I feel better for knowing that now. I guess my only criticism would be that I feel like this information is kind of momentary, like this, I'm gonna forget this book pretty quickly, but that's also kind of the point, I enjoyed reading this book, and if I remember any of the information, then that's just a bonus. The lightness was intrinsic to what this book was trying to be. Apples are apples. Definitely enjoyed it. Would recommend, especially if you like his work on YouTube. The second book is called How Charts Lie: Getting Smarter About Visual Information by Alberto Cairo. This is about, how charts lie and how their presentation can deceive you, and how the different ways that charts can lead someone to a false conclusion, basically. I was so looking forward to this book because I thought it was going to be similar in tone to Humble Pie, but it really wasn't. It was much more serious than I expected. He uses examples from politics and climate change and homelessness, and I think he covered those topics well. It wasn't what I was expecting to be confronted with. I expected most of what was in here to be fabricated and made up examples, but ultimately I would say the vast majority of what he uses are real world examples, which has its benefits, right? It genuinely shows us how charts can lead people to false conclusions. There were some light-hearted examples, but overall this book was just much heavier than I expected or really wanted from it. I did like the beginning chapter, where he goes into how charts are meant to work, how to read one, how they function, and I really liked how he went into the different ways that data can be encoded. I thought that was really informative. The most interesting parts for me were when he was talking about hurricane cone charts and how they don't show what people think they show, and that actually making a good hurricane chart is really challenging. I found that fascinating because I don't live in an area where we get hurricanes, so I didn't know about their existence. I also really liked when he talked about Florence Nightingale's wedge chart and the history behind that chart, and how really she was just a brilliant statistician, and that was integral to her later advocacy work. I don't know much about Florence Nightingale, and he really piqued my interest in her. I also love the visuals in this book, and that's an important aspect in a book about graphs, right? They decided to just use one accent colour, which was orange, and that, in combined with a grayscale, was really effective at conveying a lot of different sorts of charts and information, but still having a consistent aesthetic throughout the entire book. Whoever was making the choices for the visuals in this book really thought about it, and they did a great job. I didn't dislike this book, but I didn't really enjoy it that much either. I'm not really sure who I'd recommend it to, because if you're really into charts, then I think a lot of what this says will already be familiar to you. You know, it is a very light skirting on the surface of the topic of charts. And if you're not really into charts, well, then I don't think this book is entertaining enough to keep you engaged. This book didn't really go into the very nitty gritty of charts, but then it's not fun enough to be, you know, pop science. I feel bad because there was obviously a lot of effort put into this book, but ultimately it left me kind of underwhelmed. Alright, so they are the two recent maths type books that I read. Thank you for watching.